won't fear.
I won't fear.
I'm filled with anointing.
I'm filled with anointing.
Thank you, Jesus. My cup's overflowing.
My cup's overflowing.
No weapon can harm me.
No weapon can harm me.
Jesus. I won't fear.
I won't fear.
People of God sing hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I am not alone.
I am not alone.
Hey, he's my comfort.
He's my comfort.
And he always holds me
Always holds me.
close. Somebody just shout Jesus right there. He always guides me.
He always guides me.
Through mountains and valleys.
Through mountains and valleys.
His joy is refreshing.
His joy is refreshing.
Restores my soul.
Restores my soul.
Say this with confidence. Mercy and goodness.
Mercy and goodness.
Ooh, oh, give me assurance.
Give me assurance.
Oh, that I'll see your glory.
I'll see His glory.
Oh, face to face.
Face to face.
Oh, sing hallelujah. He's my comfort.
He's my comfort. Always holds me
Everybody say your spirit.
Your spirit lives within
So
me.
I will walk in
So
your peace.
I will walk in your
Say again, your spirit.
Your spirit lives
Now say this.
within
My
me.
victory.
My victory.
My victory.
My
Say your
victory.
spirit.
Your spirit.
Good evening, saints. Wherever you are in the world, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. This is One Stick Gospel, and basically, we're going to go into the Come in One World digital beast currency, the system, and I've got a lot of ground to cover. So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and first thank everyone who subscribed, those who posted in the chat area and reposted and so forth. I couldn't be more grateful to you guys for subscribing to this channel. I have a lot more lives to do, and I hope you would join me during those lives. If you can't, then of course you can catch the recording thereafter, and get your friends and other family members to subscribe, because My intent is to preach the truth, to teach the truth above all, and to serve the one true God. That's my intent. So without further ado, because we got a lot to cover, and I'm trying my best to get through all of it. So let's go ahead and invite God to intercede, Jesus Christ to intercede on our behalf to the Father. Father, as we part ways, excuse me, let me back up. Here we go. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a chance to catch up because I just queued it, and it will come up here shortly. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Like I said, we got a lot to catch up. O God, we approach your holy throne with absolute reverence and a contrite heart. Who can reveal secrets unto us but you, Adonai? You have revealed the beginning and the end of all matters pertaining to prophecy. We, your humble servants, with repentant minds and hearts, seek your wisdom and understanding in the facilitation of this lesson. Allow me to decrease that you may increase to enable all who are viewing this lesson may gain clarity, Lord. Because you are not the author of confusion, and in all things your will be done in heaven and here on earth. We proclaim these things through your Son, Yeshua. Amen and amen. And for those who are in the chat, go ahead and put your amen. If you see it later, put your amen in. It says where more than two are in his presence, he's in the midst of us, and we agree. All right, that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Eventually, more people will catch up as they get into the room. And I welcome all those who are here. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to get in some deep instances, and we're going to do some definitions also of the word in the verse to do basically using the concordance to gain clarity as far as what the verse is actually saying. Okay, so before we even start going into the lesson, I want to highlight this thumbnail and explain what's going on here. Allow me to explain this thumbnail before we start. You see at the top in the far left your eye scan, your fingerprint, and probably even Amazon now has a palm characteristic scan. Your heartbeat, your body temperature, whether you have a fever signaling sickness, or you are sweating profusely signaling nervousness, or maybe you're just exercising, they will be able to detect all these things through biometrics ran by artificial intelligence. Next, you have the scales carried by the third horseman of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, basically the first four seals in Revelation. We're talking in particular the third horseman, the third rider, the black horse rider. Basically, your digital money will be yoked to your health status, hence jab passports for those who take the mark. If the mark will be implemented, the sensors will determine that you're exhibiting signs of illness, then your account will be locked until your status is determined. Don't believe? Check out what's happening in Australia. They have 15 minutes to report back to the authorities their location or status in relation to the curfew or lockdowns, or the authorities are dispatched to hunt them down. That's a fact. Okay? That's a fact. And we have seen this throughout the media, especially Australian media. The green smoke you see is the strong deception the father of lies, Satan, operates in to cloak the truth, which is happening right now as I speak to you via the mainstream media. The fist of burning money is a destruction of the paper money and coin system worldwide to bring in the blockchain encrypted digital currency ran by artificial intelligence. the two cows yoked together, once you take the mark of the beast, you are forever coupled or enslaved by the beast system, and it basically cannot be undone. This is why you are no longer redeemable by God and you're cursed forever. Saints, something goes into your DNA or into your body that mixes with your biological blueprint made by God Himself, which makes you human in the first place. But something is going to mix inside your DNA to cause you to be unredeemable. Question is, there is something encompassing the whole earth right now as we speak, and is being administered to both rich and poor, small and great, or free and bond. We know what that is. No need to answer. Also, are people being forced to take it via mass mandates around the world? Otherwise, they can't keep their jobs, or they are isolated from society and must remain in their homes. Is that not happening? Exactly. If you take this mark, you will become a slave of Satan, hence his mark on your right hand or in your forehead. Okay? That's what that is all about. Okay? All right, let's get into it and start reading. Let's start with Revelation 6:5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Revelation 6:6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Now I'm going to explain what the oil and the wine is before I move over to explain balances, okay? The term, see thou hurt not the oil and the wine, the oil is God's anointed, and the wine are those saints known as tribulation saints. I'm going to prove it to you. Revelation 7:13 says, And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which come out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. In other words, they are the grape harvest and will be crushed by the Antichrist, false prophet, and Satan. Remember, the woman goes into the wilderness. She's flown into the wilderness and she's protected, but then he goes after the seed of the woman, which is the rest of the church, right? That's what this is, right? As a result of the grapes being crushed, they will become wine. Hence the term, hurt not the oil and the wine. Remember, Jesus used a term where he says, and even in Paul in Thessalonians, he says that the corruptible must put on the incorruptible, meaning your body is going to change when the rapture occurs, or what many call the hapazo, or the catching away. You get new bodies, incorruptible bodies. So you can't put wine into old garments or old skin, old wine skin. So that's the term. That's why they're going to be crushed. They're going to be transformed because there's going to be a great revival during the tribulation period, especially when the two witnesses start to basically prophesy for that 1,260 days or 3.5 years. This is what it speaks of, because the second half is what people consider the Great Tribulation. To me, the entire thing is a tribulation, but it's the Great Tribulation, because at that point, the devil allows the Antichrist to continue to rule for 42 months. The devil literally will be here on earth because he will be kicked out of heaven, him and 1/3 of the angels. So that's what the term oil and wine means. It has nothing to talk about rich people having delicacies and all that stuff. Remember, it says rich and poor, free and bond are going to receive the mark. So it has nothing to do with rich and delicacies being available. That's not what it means. It means the anointed and the ones who are going to be crushed during the great tribulation. Okay? Now that we've clarified that, let's move on. Then we get over to Strong Concordance, and we're going to talk about balances. And the number is G2218, and it means zogos or disgos from the root of zetanim. And basically what it means is it means to join, especially by a yoke, a coupling, that is servitude or what we call slavery or enslavement, a law or obligation. Also, literally, the beam or balance as connecting the scales, a pair of balances or a yoke. But in the prophetic sense, the way that John is describing this is that you're going to be yoked to Satan. You're going to be enslaved by Satan. Okay? And the problem is that it cannot be undone once you take this mark, because you forever be coupled to Satan. Okay? That is what's happening. Okay? And that's why I say that during the 3.5 years, or even before, a lot of people are going to start seeing these prophecies come to fulfillment, and they're going to start realizing that the book of Revelation, in fact, the Bible, and that the Messiah is indeed true. He is who he say he is, especially when the two witnesses show up and say, hey, I was there. This is what Yeshua did. This is what the Messiah did. He is the one true living God. When he starts, or they start to prophesy, a lot of people's eyes are going to be open. The scales are going to fall off. But a lot of us believers now see this thing that's basically taking over the entire earth and in every nation and being mandated. A lot of us with spiritual eyes can see already that this is what the Bible says it is. So let's be logical and use a little bit of critical thinking. I'm a very analytical person. I'm an engineer by trade, so analyses and to gather data and to analyze it is in my DNA, if you want to say that, or in my blood. Okay? And what I'm saying is, this is what I'm trying to say to you, saints. Some say, well, it's the precursor or the beginning of the mark. That's what they're saying. Okay? So let's play devil's advocate and say it is the precursor. So then you're telling me that you're willing to take a partial mark or partial component of the mark and waiting for the rest to show up, and then that's when you're going to say, oh my God, this is the mark? That makes no sense. It defies logic. So you're saying this is the precursor to the mark, but you're willing to put your kids and your family to take this thing. And we all know what this thing is. Okay? I'm not against getting regular jabs. And you guys know what I mean by regular jabs, like for measles, rubella, smallpox, etc. You guys know the things that you need, okay, that have been tested, tried, and true. None of us are. We all have gotten them. But there's something peculiar that's going on about this. When they are enticing you and telling you that you need to take this thing, okay, and we're going to give you a free donut, we're going to hold lotteries for you guys so that you guys could win a lottery, money, or whatever other amenities that they offer, the red flag should immediately go up that something isn't right. Never before in the history of humanity have they offered amenities and privileges to take a jab. Again, the red flag should go up. Okay? That's how I feel about the whole matter. Okay? So, for the guys and gals, especially, I call the shepherds, meaning the pastors, who are lining up people in their church or surrounding buildings, or even are proclaiming that this isn't it. Well, I just played devil's advocate and showed you the logical mindset that you have, that if it's partial and it's the beginning, then why would you take it in the first place? Makes no sense. So, wait a minute, brothers and sisters in Christ. Didn't the Bible already tell us that what we're experiencing now has already happened. It will also happen again as per Ecclesiastes 1:9, which says, the thing that had been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there's no new thing under the sun. Nebuchadnezzar, when he set this up in the plain of Dura, okay, in that province of Babylon, this thing, okay, when he set it up in the three Hebrew boys, which we know as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were commanded, like we're being commanded now, or mandated, because in the book of Revelation, chapter 13 says it calls it. When somebody calls you to do something, it's not by your free will, just like these three Hebrew boys we're looking at. They were commanded, they were mandated. This was from the king himself telling them, when you hear the music and the psaltery and the other instruments, you are commanded to fall down, bow down, and worship me, my image. Okay? That's what happened. That's what the Bible says. It already has happened. Okay? This thing was 66 cubits tall and 6 cubits wide. We know a square, when we're talking about math, we talk about a square is x raised to the second power. When we talk about cube, we're talking about x raised to the third power. Isn't it interesting that the mark, the number of his name is a number, what is what? 666, right? 3 scores and 66, which basically means 666 is what he's saying. Okay? That's what John is saying. So we see that. It already happened. Okay? So there's nothing new. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, like I said, this thing was 66 cubits, which translate to 99 feet tall and 9 feet wide. And it was made of gold. And it wasn't like a monolith, like the straight, it looks like a monolith, but it's not like it was a monolith. It was in the image of Nebuchadnezzar, which means they had to carve it out with gold. And the reason why I brought it up is because it's going to take time. Just like it took time to make that image, it's going to take time for the image of the beast to manifest itself here on earth fully, meaning it's going to be a global law. It's going to be a law globally. Because that's what Nebuchadnezzar did. He gathered all the princes from all the province, all the chiefs, all the military mighty men, and brought them into the plains of Dura in the province of Babylon and they basically commemorated this image and told them to bow down and worship it. That's exactly what's going to happen. Okay? Y'all see that now? Just as it took time to make this image, it's going to take time for this to be implemented into the world's population is roughly 8 billion plus people. It's going to take time for it to go around the entire world. For instance, there's not enough of the purple juice to give to poorer nations, so it's going to take time. Okay? That's what that means. All right? And I just want to clear that up. And the problem is, these evil men they're going to achieve this agenda. There's no stopping this. The prophecy is starting to pick up steam. Have you ever wondered why that the horses, the 4 horsemen, the first 4 seals, have you ever wondered, did you notice that there are horses? When a horse begins to run, it slowly trots. And then eventually, just like when you go to the Kentucky Derby, and eventually it picks up speed and it starts to gallop. Instead of trotting, it starts to gallop. It gallops faster and faster and faster until it gets to the finish line. Okay? That's what it is. Also, notice in Revelation, nowhere in there does it says that the horses stop writing. It's just that one is released after the other, and it seems to me that eventually they all start to ride together, and nowhere it says, well, this plague stops. For instance, pestilence. We know pestilence is going to take us all the way through. Okay? All right. I hope I clear some stuff up with that. And I want to continue now. Like I said, we got a lot of things that we need to do. So what I want to do now, we're going to talk about the blockchain, and then we're going to come back and discuss this. But I want you guys to watch a video. Okay? I want you guys to watch a video of the blockchain, and just give me a chance to cue it so you guys can see it. And we'll go.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a Blockchains are Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes the blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the Genesis block. Now let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You can effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, Blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else, so this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves. Want to learn how you can implement a simple blockchain in JavaScript? Then check out this video here. And as always, thank you very much for watching.
Okay, Saints, you just watched the video on blockchain, and I hope many of us probably already knew how it worked, but even myself, I wasn't even sure how this thing was going to work. But when there's more data, I actually congeal that down to make it more palatable for a lot of people, and including myself, because it's a lot of technical nomenclature is used. But essentially, a blockchain is a database that stores encrypted blocks of data, then chains them together to form a chronological single source of truth for the data. Digital assets are distributed instead of copied or transferred, creating an immutable record of an asset. And basically what immutable means is unable to be changed. It's basically an ironclad system. The asset is decentralized, allowing full real-time access and transparency to the public. A transparent ledger of changes preserves the integrity of the document, which creates trust in the asset. Blockchain's inherent security measures and public ledger make it a prime technology for almost every single sector. Notice how it says blockchains together to form, or the blockchain chains together to form a chronological single source of truth for data. Is it because deception and fraud will be so pervasive that they bring about these mandates and draconian measures? But it will only be alive for consumer conveniences. That's what they're going to sell. It's going to be for consumer conveniences and exploitation of the masses. Blockchain technology is most simple defined as a decentralized distributed ledger that records the provenance of a digital asset. By inherent design, the data on the blockchain is unable to be modified, which makes it a legitimate disruptor for industries like payments, cybersecurity, and healthcare. No, Saints, what have we been experiencing last year into this year? Cyber attacks. Remember the oil pipeline Colonial? Also, they broke into the DOD, the Pentagon, and everything else, right? And they claimed that Fireside, which was a cybersecurity company, basically they didn't do enough to cause it to be secured. Then we go back to Texas. Well, we have to start laying this data out as if we were prosecuting a case. Remember Texas? They said because the so-called wind turbines and the actual coal fire plants, they failed because they didn't do maintenance, and some was a cyber issue, and all these things are starting to play, and it just seems funny and ironic that they're taking place now. I really do believe on the horizon is a major, major cyber attack possible to the banking system of the United States. When you touch somebody's money, right? That's when you get somebody's attention. Remember? That's we call the Hegelian dialect, which was we create the problem, and then they come with the solution. Problem, solution. And then they do what? They repeat the cycle, which is wash and rinse. And the masses fall under this spell. And that's what we believe, the mass media, when they come out and say, oh, it was Russia, oh, it was China, vice versa. It's always somebody else. And I'm not saying some of it isn't true, but the fact I'm saying, why now? All of a sudden now, right? That's what I'm saying. That's my point. And the fact that this thing will be ironclad, you won't be able to hack this. And that's why I'm believing that these hacks that are taking place are being allowed to usher the people into, it's kind of like corralling the sheep into the pen, so that we all go along with this idea of, yeah, we need to go digital. It's the only way we're going to prevent crime and fraud and etc., right? All right, I want you guys to stay with me because I'm going to show you that what I'm saying is absolutely true. And again, not to insult anybody's intelligence, because I know a lot of you guys, based on the posts that I have read that you guys have posted, that a lot of you guys already know this, and this is elementary for you guys. But there are some, I'm hoping that if there's one person who watches this now or later, that it will wake them up to see that what I speak of is absolutely true. Okay? What I speak of is absolutely true. Right? So that's what I'm hoping. All right, so I'm going to cue another video now. Let me get set up first. And just give me a minute. And what I'm going to cue now is hydrogel and the graphene. What I want you to pay attention to, Saints, because they want us not to believe our eyes and ears what we're hearing from other commentators, people like Stu Peters and Dr. Maggi and so forth. They want us not to believe what these people are saying, because basically let me cue it down and get it in, and then I'll let me continue talking. They don't want us to believe what we're hearing, and they're using the mainstream media as a weapon to cast misinformation so that we can't know the truth. And yes, I'm gonna say this right now, all these world leaders are in on what's going on. There's no way they can't know. There's no way. It's happening worldwide. Okay? All right, let me play the video. But what I want you to pay attention is the graphene, when that electrolyte, it's in that electrolyte solution, and then they apply EMF or electromotive force to it, and watch how the graphene self-assembles. Everybody kind of know about hydrogel. That's interesting too, but it's the graphene I want you guys to pay attention in particular. All right, let's go. Let's play.
Hydrogels are a gelatin-like polymer material made mostly of water. They are stretchy and robust, and in the case of a hydrogel developed by a team at MIT, they can be extremely sticky. They can be used for a variety of applications, such as embedding electrical sensors within the hydrogel to create a smart bandage, or as a way to deliver drugs to a patient. However, much like anything made up of 90% water, hydrogels will eventually dry out, losing their flexibility. Now, the same team of researchers from MIT that developed a robust, sticky hydrogel has found a way to prevent hydrogels from dehydrating, with a technique that could lead to longer-lasting contact lenses, stretchy microfluidic devices, flexible bioelectronics, and even artificial skin. Their method involves binding the hydrogels to elastomers, otherwise known as elastic polymers such as rubber and silicone. These elastomers are stretchy like hydrogels, yet impervious to water. They found that coating the hydrogels with a thin elastomer layer provided a water-trapping barrier that kept the hydrogels moist, flexible, and robust. The researchers pulled inspiration from skin, more specifically the bond between the epidermis and the dermis, where the epidermis acts as a shield, protecting the dermis and its network of nerves and capillaries as well as the rest of the body's internal muscles and organs from drying out. Similarly, the hydrogel elastomer hybrid is the shield that protects the hydrogel and all the components embedded within it from drying out and malfunctioning. Next, the group hopes to further test the hybrid material's potential in a number of applications, including wearable electronics and on-demand drug delivery bandages, as well as non-drying, circuit-embedded contact lenses.
Printing is a fast and efficient method to reproduce an ink-based pattern. Similarly, hydrogel ink can be 3D printed into complex hierarchical structures. In vivo printing of biologically compatible hydrogel could lead to 3D printable bioelectronics. In a Communication in Advanced Materials, Professor Feng Jiang from Guangzhou Medical University, Professor Hao Pei from East China Normal University, and their co-workers report a printed, flexible electrochemical sensor based on a 3D printable enzyme-like nanofibrous hydrogel. Cation templated assembly of G-boronate diesters formed a G-quartet motif that could be stacked in the presence of hemin to produce an enzyme-like nanofibrous hydrogel. Step strain measurements demonstrate that the hydrogel could switch between a quasi-liquid state at 50% strain to a self-standing hydrogel at 0.1% strain. The hydrogel could therefore be injected through a needle onto a substrate, where it maintains its structure. At a molar ratio of 12:1 for G to hemin, the hydrogel was shown to mimic peroxidase during hydrogen peroxide TMB oxidation and significantly enhanced catalytic activity compared to free hemin. During the oxidation of aniline by hydrogen peroxide to PANI, an approximately 2 nanometer thick layer of PANI was deposited on the catalytic hydrogel matrix. Proton doping of the hybrid gel resulted in an electrically conductive dark green hybrid hydrogel, which was confirmed by characteristic IV curves and absorption spectra. As a proof of concept of the 3D printing and electrical material properties, the researchers fabricated a glucose biosensor by loading glucose oxidase enzyme into the hybrid hydrogel. The electrocatalytic currents increased monotonically for the glucose oxidase loaded hybrid hydrogel under different concentrations of glucose, demonstrating its potential as a glucose sensor. To find out more about this promising enzyme-like nanofibrous hydrogel, please visit the Advanced Materials homepage.
Now this is the part that I want you guys to watch. It's coming up here shortly. There you go. Do you see the electric probes or rods going into the electrolyte solution? And your body is made up of electrolytes, right? Remember, when you get dehydrated, you got to put electrolytes back in, right?
Hi, I'm Gregory Schneider. I work in the team of Kees Dekker, and I work on designing graphene nanopores to sequence DNA at a single molecule level. So the idea of DNA sequencing is to read the content of your genome. And what you want is a recorder that can read the sequence of your DNA, but for that you need a recorder that is not bigger than the size of a single base. So we are using graphene because graphene is only 1 atom thin. So we are really doing high technology with very simple methods. So we take a piece of graphite here, we put the graphite onto the Scotch tape, we exfoliate once, we take a silicon wafer here, in which that we bring into contact with the graphene, we press hard, we end up with a piece of wafer that somewhere has a graphene layer. And then we'll bring that chip to a transmission electron microscope to burn a nanopore into it. So then we take this chip, we flow on both sides a buffer, and on one side we inject the DNA molecule, and that's what we can record. There are still a few challenges to overcome, but all the technology I mentioned is in the size of this little chip here that could be used by a physician in his office to sequence the DNA of one of his patients in only a few minutes rather than a few days.
Okay, so what I want to do now is go ahead and load another video. I want to try to get through these videos as fast as possible due to the interest of time. And this one is going to be on the D-Wave, then we're going to talk about it, okay? D-Wave computer.
You'll probably remember from your physics classes that a quantum mechanical object, if it's disturbed, you can it's called freeze it out, or it becomes classical.
It's being queued right now.
Every quantum computer has as its building block a thing called a qubit, a quantum bit. And a quantum bit is like a digital bit that's in every computer. It's sort of the building blocks of all computers. But it has this special characteristic that it can be in what's called the superposition of 0 and 1 at the same time. So if you step back from that, this object is actually in two different states at the same time. And it's not like half in the state of one to half in the other. It is in those two states at the same time. It sounds spooky. Einstein called it spooky, but it is a fundamental law of quantum mechanics, and it is the building block of a quantum computer. So these qubits that are all in this superposition, which is a very delicate state, and whenever a cosmic ray or some kind of interference hits that computation, it freezes it out to a classical state. So you have to. The trick is to keep the calculation going in this superposition for the duration of the computational cycle. It's refrigerated at a temperature which is near absolute zero. So you probably remember, minus 273 degrees centigrade is the lowest temperature. They're called the thermodynamic limit, or the lowest temperature that's physically possible in the universe. This machine runs at 0.01 Kelvin or 10 millikelvin above that. So unless there's any other intelligent life in the universe, this is the coldest environment on the planet in the universe that this machine has to run in. Like, for instance, interstellar space is at 4 Kelvin, which is much, much warmer than our operating temperature. So that's not the only part of it. We have to create a magnetic vacuum and an air vacuum. So there's this coffee can-sized environment that has this incredibly low temperature and this vacuum and this magnetic vacuum that is probably among the purest environments in the universe. There are no naturally occurring environments like this. You don't buy a quantum computer for the economics. But that will change, as I said, as the power of the machine grows. There can certainly be just an economic benefit of using this for certain problem types versus classical computing.
In order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly, at least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. And that's not the only one. In fact, the one I'm going to come back to and talk to in the context of the story that I'm wrapping this in was recently installed at NASA. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And this one is really exciting to me, because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's the crux of our future as humans, and that's, can we build machines like us? So, building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is. I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about is applying this beautiful new computational idea in the service of trying to make intelligent machines. Now, I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines, so this is very exciting to me. Steve Jurvetson has been a long-time friend and investor in the company, and for those of you who don't know him, he's a Silicon Valley investor who's probably the smartest VC that I know of, and certainly the one that's the most attuned to technological trends. He's on the board of SpaceX, Tesla, Synthetic Genomics, which is Craig Venter's company, is trying to build artificial life, and D-Wave, and that's it. And this is his particularly poetic way of framing the difference between the machines we build and conventional computers. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines.
Did y'all hear that? He said it's like an alien god. It's coming up. You hear him say it.
At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two. that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other, never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which has about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact we have our own version of Moore's Law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so.
Saints, isn't that what Daniel said in the book of Daniel, that knowledge will increase? Right? It is happening. It is happening, guys.
As a point of reference in terms of how fast these things are, in one generation of chip, the one from the system that was installed at USC to the one that Google and NASA have now, the speed of the device went up by almost 500,000. This is the kind of progress that you're going to see with these types of machines going forward. And 500,000 sounds like an abstract number, but I put up a little mental comparison here to see what 5,000 really means. 500,000 is a big number when it comes to speed. All right, so now I'm getting into the last part of my talk where I'm going to make some predictions, some dangerous predictions. So predictions are very dangerous for a variety of reasons. Often they're wrong, which is one. But I think they're important because predictions somehow are our internal desires made manifest. Predictions are about what we want to happen, maybe not what will happen. And I'm going to make 3 predictions, and all of them are dangerous in the sense that they're very unlikely to happen, maybe, but I think that there's a very good chance that they may. As an aside, I just wanted to say that at least in the Valley, Silicon Valley, and maybe in the United States in general, there's a very deep feeling of unease about the way technology has been developing. Because we have all of these vast array of very smart people, and what they're doing is crap. They're building things that cannot last. They're building things that are not important. This is a little bit of a controversial point of view, but I believe it. But I think that the reason for this is it's low-hanging fruit. Computers haven't been around for a long time. And I think that what's going to happen is that as people get more comfortable with computers, the attention will turn from the Twitters and the Facebooks to very important things. So here's my first prediction. I'm going to predict that by 5 years, NASA will have found an Earth-like planet with an Earth-like atmosphere and water on it, and serious people will start discussing how we get there. And by the way, they're going to use one of our machines to help do this. So that's my first prediction. My second prediction is that this business of parallel universes is going to turn out to be very important. This picture that I've got under here is what's called a gravitational lens. when Einstein proposed his general theory of relativity, it came with a bunch of experiments that you could use to test it. And one of them was that if there was a point of light very far away and a galaxy in the middle, that galaxy should bend the light and you should see a ring. And this was eventually observed. And I think what's going to happen is somebody is going to come up with an experiment to test this reality of these things. And we're going to be able to do so. My third prediction that I'm going to end on is the most important of all. I believe that humanity is on the cusp of the most important technological, societal revolution that's ever occurred. And that's when we got to the point where the machines that we build outpace us in every respect. I don't mean that they're better calculators. I don't mean that they're better at searching. I mean everything. And I think that we're very close. And my prediction is that within 15 years, we will have machines that outpace humans in everything. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Colonel Matt Hepburn. I'm a program manager in the Biological Technologies Office at DARPA. I am a active duty Army infectious diseases physician and have specialized in addressing biological threats that can either be engineered or naturally occurring, such as Ebola or pandemic influenza. Today we're going to be talking about one of the technologies that I actively manage, a company called Profusa, which is aiming at achieving continuous health monitoring. Through the SBIR program, we funded them to solve an incredible technical challenge that no one else had been previously able to solve. The key innovation that was presented to us is they said, why can't we make a chemical substance that's really identical to what's underneath the skin, what we call the subcutaneous tissue, so that your body doesn't recognize it as a foreign body response. It just incorporates itself into the tissue. And we have a lot of examples now where a sensor put right underneath the skin can sense things like oxygen and other chemicals that are very important to our metabolism. And not just sense that for a day or a week or even a month, but we imagine that sensing these parameters can go on for a period of years. One of the most important applications to us is so that we can improve the health of our worldwide deployed military force. We feel a strong sense of obligation that if we're going to ask somebody to be deployed and to carry out their mission, that we want to keep them healthy. And this technology will give us a way to monitor if someone is getting sick. We imagine that we would be able to sense that very early and therefore prevent them from getting sick and prevent their complications, allow them to stay healthy and continue to carry out their mission. In addition, if our technology translates into general health benefit, we're very excited about that. So, in other words, we fund those national security applications. The company finds private sector partnership funding for that general health benefit. And we see it as really a win-win as this technology develops.
These are devices that are mounted on the skin and allow for a simple integration of electronics with the human body. Rather than going to the doctor once a year to get your physical, this tattoo can be something that you just put on your body once a year, and it monitors everything that they would do in a physical and sends that to your doctor. And if there's an issue, they can call you.
Alright guys, so I'm sorry about that. That was a pretty long video, but I had to compile them and put them together, and that is the longest of all the videos. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. But brothers and sisters, did you notice how the graphene element, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Did you notice how the graphene element self-assembled itself when an EMF force or electromotive force of electricity was applied to the electrolyte solution? It will also behave the same way with radio frequency manipulation. Is it not rumored that the purple juice has graphene oxide in it and is magnetic? No, I haven't seen it myself, but I'm trusting a lot of doctors because they went to school. Okay, just like the rest of doctors who are trying to basically defame them and basically soil their character and tell them that they're putting out misinformation, that they're liars, right? Like what they see under a microscope is not the same thing that any doctor who is trained with a trained eye would see. And that's what I mean by the mass media. Okay? It will also behave the same way. Okay? Very interesting times we're living in, the last days. To non-believers, what more is it going to take before you repent and believe in Yeshua? The elites have shown us their plan, and it can't be stopped. Only the Father God Almighty can stop this now. Okay. Did you guys also take notice of how the inventor of the D-Wave quantum computer said it sounds eerily like a heartbeat and like an alien god? He also said eventually they will be able to enter parallel universes and take resources from there to bring back to our realm. This is not a fairy tale, guys. You heard it for your own self. That's why I wanted you guys to hear it. So that way, if I put it and write it, you guys say, well, you're making that stuff. That's not true. No. This technology is already here. And he said since they've been working on it for 9 years, that they have improved it now that it's 500 times. They even said Google and NASA and the CIA are using these computers. This is real, tangible technology they're embarking upon. He stated quantum computation will be embedded in all our lives. This is Pandora's box and demonic in every essence. Listen, saints, playtime is over. We must run, not walk, to Christ's feet, as per the woman with the issue of blood. Are we that prideful? Are we that prideful to resist or refuse salvation, which is free? Okay? There's no way. There's no way. But this is where we are. Okay? This is where we are. I'm gonna load one more video here.
Starlink explained in 100 seconds. The ideas of Tesla founder and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk are forward-looking. His next innovation, Starlink, is now in the starting blocks, making the internet available to everyone anywhere in the world at low cost. The internet has almost become the norm for mankind and is indispensable in many areas. However, you certainly know the plight. You're on a train, on vacation with your relatives in the country, and you find yourself in a dead zone. Due to the geographic nature of some places on Earth, it has simply not been possible to receive internet before. Networking between devices such as in the smart home also benefits from this, because Starlink transmits with a high bandwidth and has only a minimal transmission time. Starlink is the satellite internet of today. SpaceX launches satellites into low Earth orbit 340 to 100,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface. So far, there are 12,000 satellites communicating with each other via lasers at the speed of light. The satellites then send their data via radio link to terminals on Earth to us humans. This means that speeds of at least 100 Mbit per second downstream and 20 Mbit per second upstream can be achieved with a maximum latence of 31 milliseconds. The whole thing is not yet affordable. Elon Musk's service is expected to cost €99 per month. But that's not enough. An additional one-time fee of €499 is charged for the hardware and €59 for shipping. In return, end users will receive a small satellite. According to SpaceX's website, Starlink will be available in Europe by mid to late 2021 at the latest. Anyone interested in the new internet via satellite should be quick, because the maximum number of users per region is limited. The access will be distributed to the fastest pre-purchasers in each case. What do you think about Starlink? Tell me in the comment section below, and like the video if you like it, and also subscribe for further videos.
Okay, so coming up next, you're going to see basically a geospatial map or rendition of what Starlink is going to look like. And it reminds me so eerily of the Terminator movie when they were trying to destroy this system. Okay, like I said, they tell us in their movies what they're about to do, and then you see it play out in real life. Okay, and we just say, "Oh, that's an awesome movie," or that, and indeed, it's mind-boggling. You be like, "Wow, can they really do that?" Well, look at it. This is what it will be. That's what it's going to look like when Elon Musk launches all 42,000 satellites. It's going to provide that low latency. In other words, basically, the time for a regular internet satellite sits further up in orbit, so it takes time for it to transmit from the satellite back down to the computers here on Earth. But what he has done, and very smart at that too, I give him his props on that, is reduce the time by bringing them closer to Earth. And these communicate via lasers, because it's like fiber optics light, right? The speed of light. That's how fast it's going to be. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're in a section, let's say you're in Africa and someone is in South America, it doesn't matter. The speed is relatively going to be the same, because it's going to, kind of like Wi-Fi, it's going to attach to the satellite that's very close to you, and that information is going to beam from the satellite where it is in Africa to bring it closer, basically to make it easier to receive in South America or wherever. They have solved this. This is happening right now. He's launching and lobbing these satellites in space like there's no tomorrow. Okay? In fact, I'm going to even say this now, as very infantile as his company is with regards to SpaceX, so far he has mastered the ability to go to space. Yeah, they had some hiccups, but he has mastered it better than NASA, the National Space Agency. He really has, where he can reuse the rockets and so forth. It's incredible. I don't even think Virgin, with that billionaire of the guy, can even come close to what Elon has done. Okay? But this is what it is. Okay? That's what's happening. Okay? I just want you guys to see it. Okay? I wanted you guys to see what I'm seeing, and to show you guys. And like I said, a lot of you guys already know. A lot of you guys already know. Okay? So just give me a minute, and basically we're going to kind of like summarize this stuff. So when you put all the technologies you were shown as per the various videos together, it will eventually form the beast system as stated in the book of Revelation. Can you now see how close we are to the end of this sinful world we live in? Okay? Again, let's summarize. And by the way, remember, Daniel says knowledge will increase. So some of these systems may even be more advanced by the time the beast system come into play and is fully implemented. Meaning worldwide, you bow down, you worship the image of this persona. Okay? So we talk about crypto blockchain tech, hydrogel and graphene tech, digital tattoos, D-Wave quantum computer, Starlink internet satellites. And my mind just go right back to Genesis 11:16. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this is they beginning to do." This is what they begin to do. "And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." Verse 7 says, "Go to, let us go down there, confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." Now we see why the Lord God Almighty confounded their language. Hence scripture says in the last days no flesh would be saved, lest Yeshua himself intervened. And for that very reason the days were shortened. Okay? This is the time we live in now. This is where we are. Okay? My next video, and this one is a short one too. Okay? This guy is, his name is Dan Celia, and he's a conservative Christian radio host out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he has been in the business sector for a while, to the point he made so much money, he retired, and basically all he does now is full ministry. Okay? That's all he does, is full ministry. All right? So I want you to hear it from an expert, and don't take it from me what he says about this coming one world governance or one world government, and how he says that the digital money, what will happen first. Okay. I appreciate you guys hanging with me, but I definitely want you guys to see this. Okay. Just queued it.
I've been saying for months, everybody else saying it now, which is irritating because they knew it too, but they didn't feel it newsworthy. But I've been saying that, look, if Britain leaves, it is opening the door. It is going to be the beginning of the end for the Eurozone. The Eurozone, in my opinion, is a failed project. And I believe we're going to start to see that door open. I've been saying, I wrote about it in 2009, that I believe that a one world currency is the very thing that is going to usher in the one world government. So the Eurozone would seem to be a little bit closer to that. But one of the reasons why the Eurozone has failed is because they've got these 17 nations, or had these 17 nations, on a euro currency with no governing authority. Well, now they've got the governing authority, realizing that you can't have a currency without a governing authority. So they institute a grand plan for a European Central Bank that was going to call the shots without having to go to 17 different parliaments to get everything approved. So that is what really drives home the point that you're not going to have a one world government until you have a one world currency, and the one world currency is going to be the excuse to develop this one world government.
Did y'all hear that? Everybody heard that? Right? Incredible, right? I agree with him. I do. I agree. Not only that, but they're using this purple disease as an excuse to usher in, we hear this Build Back Better, right? We hear it from all the leaders, from Boris Johnson in the UK. We hear it from the folks in Australia. We hear it right here from Sleepy Joe himself saying the same thing. Build Back Better, okay? That's why they're trying to pass this $3.5 trillion budget, which we're already bankrupt as it is. Okay? Don't be fooled. The Chinese owns this country. That's who we owe a lot of this money to. Okay? I don't want to digress too much. I kind of want to be disciplined, and so I'm a refrain because I got a lot to say. Okay? But anyways, we all have seen this because I already posted this as a single thumbnail so people could see, and the reason why I did it that way was the urgency to let people know, look, these potential 10 nations are on, or there it's basically just like prophecy said. Prophecy says that in 1 hour they receive power with the beast. I'm telling you that these 10 nations right now, with 3 not part of it yet, there's 7 currently, what we call the G7. Okay? But Donald Trump proposes that Australia, India, and South Korea join, and they will be known as the D10. I firmly believe that Donald Trump will retake the presidency or win the election in 2024 and begin his reign in 2025. That's my belief. That's my speculation. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because I'm going off the book of Daniel and what the book of Daniel says. Okay? Please don't crucify me. I'm open to other ideas and other implications. Believe me, I'm not closed-minded. Like I said, I'm an engineer. I'm analytic. I like to analyze and put things side by side. And when it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, my grandmama said it ain't coincident. In other words, she said it ain't coincident that it is a duck. Okay? That's all I'm saying. So let me go ahead and read. The D10 refers to an initiative by the U.S. Department of State Policy Planning data back in to 2008. It was picked up by the Atlantic Council, which launched an initiative in 2014 to maintain a rules-based democratic order under the leadership of 10 leading democracies. The D10 meeting represents over 60% of the people living in the democracies around the world. Excuse me. Okay, who is missing? Yep, Russia, China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. Right? These are major countries, but yet they're not part of it. Okay? In Daniel 7:24, and it says, "And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them." Not the kingdom, they're talking about a personality. Remember, it didn't say kingdom. It says 10 kings that shall arise, that rule 10 kingdoms. Okay? Do you see that? Let's get some clarity. And another shall arise after them, another man. This man that Daniel is referring to is the Antichrist. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. He hasn't done it yet, but once he comes on the scene, he will eventually. Prophecy will be fulfilled because, like I said, God is not the author of confusion, and his words don't come back void to him. If he says it's going to happen, it will happen. And lo and behold, here we have members of the D10, each country going down. Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, right? Britain. And then the European Union is just like the United States. It's considered one country now, even though it's made up of member states. Remember, Britain left Brexit. Britain left the European Union. And it's basically flying solo by itself now. This is the D10 nations. I firmly believe that it's going to morph into this 10-nation alliance. The newly minted Asia Czar of the United States Department of State, Kurt Campbell, who was portrayed in the press as a China hawk and credited as the architect of Obama's administration, him too, just as guilty. Don't get me started on American presidents. I even read someone earlier said that these people are selected and not elected. I agree. But that's for another, again, I'm digressing. That's for something else. Another teaching, okay? The Pivot to Asia Strategy in 2012 published an article entitled How America Can Shore Up Asian Order. In the article, he endorsed the Atlantic Council Initiative and subsequently Donald Trump's administration proposal, or he proposed to expand the G7 into a larger group of democracies that will be known as the D10 with the addition of Australia, India, and South Korea. They said of most urgent issues that they plan on talking about is trade, technology. We're currently experiencing supply chain shortages and basically standards. But basically the reason why this D10 was formulated in the first place is to curtail China's expansion. Okay? We saw the debacle that happened in Afghanistan, and I did a video on that, how that's going to be fulfilling the prophecy of the kings of the East coming down through Afghanistan because they want to establish that one belt initiative, okay? Or one belt, the Silk Road, basically the old Silk, all the way into in Iran, the Middle East, up into Europe, and even into Russia and Moscow. Y'all saw that if y'all watched it. This is not a joke anymore. Everything is being fulfilled in accordance with Bible, including the river Euphrates is drying up. Just like the Bible said. All right? It's drying up. Now, what I want to do now from this point on is I want to go ahead and let you guys listen also to the Fed chairman, who is basically, let me go ahead and cue the information first, and I'll pop the video in. Yeah, I want you guys to listen to the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, in reference to CBDC or blockchain or the digital central bank that they want to set up. Even the IMF is starting to support this. All the countries are on board. Everybody. That's why they're calling this thing Build Back Better, the Great Reset. It's an organized crash of, you guessed it, the economic system is coming. They're doing it purposely. That's why you're having these supply chain issues, okay? So let me cue the
Chair
video.
Powell, as you know, there's been a great interest in central bank digital currencies. Many countries, like China in particular, are focused on establishing a CBDC. You indicated this earlier this year, the Fed would study and issue a white paper on the subject. What is the status of that report?
We expect to publish a report around, could be early September or plus or minus, right in that time frame. And the status of it is we're working hard on it right now. But let me tell you what it is really. We're going to address digital payments broadly. So that means stable coins, it means crypto assets, it means a CBDC. That whole group of issues and payment mechanisms, which we think are really at a critical point in terms of the appropriate regulation, and in the case of a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, laying out really questions for the public to respond to about what good it can do, what the costs and benefits of it would be. We want to begin really a major public consultation across many different groups, including Congress, of course, on a CBDC and also on stable coins and crypto.
But so there are certainly advantages to a central bank digital currency or a faster payment system, but there are certainly risks. That's the case, right? This is not a riskless proposition. It's a pretty bold proposition for the Federal Reserve, is it not?
Yes, and we'll lay out the possible potential benefits. We'll put those out on paper, and also the potential risks that are undertaken. And I think those have been written up in many forums around the world. And I think both are real. And, it really depends. A lot depends on the U.S. institutional context and on why we would need a central bank digital currency and how you weigh those costs and benefits. So that's really the nature of the exercise.
And so stable coins certainly have some advantages in terms of a faster payment system and have some of the attributes of CBDC, but there are some risks with stable coins right now. Are there not? Are there concerns you have about stable coins?
Yeah, I think the issue, stable coins are a lot like money market funds or bank deposits or a narrow bank, depending on the terms of them, that kind of thing, but without the regulation. And I think we have a tradition in this country where the public's money is held in what is supposed to be a very safe asset. We have a pretty strong regulatory framework around bank deposits, for example, or money market funds. That doesn't exist really for stablecoins. And if they're going to be a significant part of the payments universe, which we don't think crypto assets will be, but stablecoins might be, then we need an appropriate regulatory framework, which frankly we don't have. The U.S. is the reserve currency. There really isn't a good competitor out there because all the things you need to be the reserve currency, really the United States has it. We're not in danger of losing it. Certainly not to China, which doesn't have an open capital account and that kind of thing. It's the kind of status that, as you well know, lasts for many, many years. So I'm not concerned about, I'm really concerned about getting this right. It does carry risks. It does have benefits. It's quite specific to the institutional context of each country. And I want to get it right. We are the reserve currency. We have first mover advantage by virtue of that. So I think it's way more important to get it right than it is to do it fast.
Okay, Saints. You heard what he said, right? He basically said, I'll let you guys finish watching before I even comment. Okay, he basically says he wants to get it right. He doesn't want to rush this because this thing is going to be ironclad, encrypted, that there's no fraud, no more fraud. Remember, when the devil shows up, the Antichrist son shows up. Okay? Everything is going to be in place for him. He's going to have all the answers. There won't be any fraud, racketeering, or human trafficking, or writing bad checks, etc., etc. There won't be any of that. In fact, you can't even write a bad check now these days. Back you used to float a check and wait 2-3 days. That can't even be done right now. Right? So I'm just saying, do you see what I see? You guys saw how Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, said he wanted to get the central digital currency right, and that their research in the viability of the CBDC will be published this fall of this year, 2021. They also have a problem with the unbanked populace worldwide who don't own credit cards or even much less a bank account. No problem. The mark of the beast, crypto, blockchain, everything biometrics chip will store all your money inside your right hand or forehead and can be deducted via a simple scan instantly no matter where you are in the world via Elon Musk Starlink. They're using the Charlie Victor 19 as an excuse to do away with cash. They're saying it's dirty money and it's causing the spread of disease. That's what they started off when this first thing started. That's what they said, right? Now you go to like even where I live anyways, I went to 7-Elevens and some stores are saying there's a corn shortage and it's due to the fact that nobody was using the coins and etc. etc. That will very may be so, some of it, but I think it's more to it. Okay? It is not a matter of if they will achieve these broad initiatives. It is just a matter of when. In my humble opinion, based on the data I have shown you saints, it definitely is not too far in the distant future before these satanic elites will have everything in place for this man of sin, the lawless one. All the puzzle pieces are on the board and are being assembled bit by bit, or should I say qubit by qubit, pun intended, in reference to the D-Wave computer. The next video clip will show while this man was running for president, pay attention on what he said about immigration, right? Entry or exit visa tracking system. Okay? Pay attention to that. Just give me a moment to load it for you guys and you can hear for yourself. Okay? All right, here we go.
We will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems, but it has never been completed. The politicians are all talk, no action, never happens, never happens. Hillary Clinton, all talk. Unfortunately, when there is action, it's always the wrong decision. Do you ever notice? In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system. Approximately half of new illegal immigrants came on temporary visas and then never ever left. Why should they? Nobody's telling them to leave. Stay as long as you want. We'll take care.
Okay, saints. I'll let you guys finish watching. Okay, saints. Some of the stuff that he says, I agree on the immigration policy. Okay? But what I want you to take away is, he said, it will be on land, air, and sea. Again, based on the spread of the disease worldwide, do you honestly believe, saints, that this protocol that will be put in place and mandated, which it already is, will only apply to immigrants? The answer is no. It will apply to everyone worldwide, hence these jab passports, right? In his application, he was talking about immigration, but you can see how this is going to go beyond immigration, because now this purple disease, manufactured, whatever, is so-called spreading throughout the earth, right? So this is the excuse. It has already begun with the jab passports or certificates. However, there are fake jab passports or cards out there, and to solve that, again, they will go digital via the mark and leapfrog past the current QR codes on your cell phones. Remember, no more fraud, right? That's what that D-Wave quantum computer and that low latency basically satellites for Elon Musk or whatever may be even better than whatever it's going to be in the future here. Because we still have some time, but it's going to happen. Remember, no more fraud. Okay? All right. There's a lot of people going to disagree with me. And again, please don't chew my head off. I'm telling you what I see in the book of Daniel. Okay? And what I read. This man will be the ruler of Babylon when the 10-nation alliance comes against the United States of America. MAGA, make America great again. The truth remains is, America's already great. It is a great nation. The book of Revelation describe it as so, with the precious pearls and so forth, and etc., etc., and all the fine flour and wood and this and that, right? All the delicacies that she has, right? So Revelation 17:16 says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, or the prostitute, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh." How? By burning her with fire. What's that fire? Nuclear tip missiles or weapons. Verse 17 goes on to say, "For God had put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled." The deception is so strong now that even Bible-believing Christians can't see this man for who he truly is, and they have received a strong delusion instead of a love for the truth. I don't even care about the election. Like somebody said, he's selected, okay? He is part of this, guys. There's no way he doesn't know. Think about this. You have an eagle, you have a bird. You have the left-wing party, and you have a right-wing party. Still the same bird. Both wings are flapping, and the bird is flying in the same direction. It doesn't matter. So if you align yourself politically, just because he says a few words that appeal to what you like I told you, I like what he said about the immigration issue, because it's a detriment. Okay, I get it. But it's how it's going to be implemented. It's the mythology you guys got to look at, and how it's going to affect not just the immigrants, it's going to affect everybody, especially now that we have this so-called purple disease. Remember when they came out with a driver's license or a social security card that everybody had to get a number or get a card? People resisted, and then finally everybody now has a card. Do you see that? It's not just one individual group is going to affect it. I'm telling you, when this man does something, it's going to affect everybody on the world stage. And you say, well, how so, One Gospel? I'm going to tell you. Remember when he put the tariffs on China? And then China slapped the tariffs back on us? Right? It affected the entire globe. Anytime this man does something, it's going to affect the entire globe. That's how you know who he is. You will see. You're going to see this. Okay? This is not a lie. And we, the consumers, for the traders who, they trade back and forth, they put the extra costs back on the consumers, and we're the ones who pay for this tariff. So the tariffs can be seen as taxes. Because now we got to pay extra money. And that's all I'm saying, guys. Don't chew my head off. I'm open-minded. Like I told you, I said I'm analytical. I will look at things. But when I see stuff lining up, and again, my grandma said it ain't coinkydink. It ain't coincidence. Something gives, and all I'm saying is to keep your eyes on this one individual. And there are many more that people have some ideas that I do watch also. He's not the only one. What I'm trying to tell you that it's not a spirit of fear, but of awareness. I want you to be aware that all the technologies are in place, and that there's a current alliance that exists in the wings, just like prophecy says, of 10 nations. And it says after this is established, remember in 2008, these 10 nations or proposed 10 nations came into play. And even the guy I'm talking about now proposed forming this 10-nation alliance. It's his idea. See that? And he comes after them. He's going to be diverse. He's going to be more diverse. He's going to be different from all of them. Donald Trump came into Washington, D.C. and turned it upside down. He didn't follow the norms of a normal presidency. He did things his way. Diverse, different. Do you see that? Magnifies himself above all. I alone could fix it. Me, not even the people who are working with him, he gives praise. I encourage you guys to go watch my Beast series, all 4 of it, and you will see that what I'm saying is absolutely true because you hear it from his own mouth. So when somebody exhibits these characteristics that Daniel told us to watch for, where he's boastful, prideful, the Lord says he don't like anybody who is proud. He likes the humble. So how could this man be a Christian, y'all? Just because he holds up a Bible in front of a church? And then when asked what is his favorite scripture, he said the whole Bible. If you ask me, I can name off 10, 20, 30 scriptures easily. Or any of you guys that is asked. I like Psalms 91. I like Psalms 51, right? 91 is about staying in the shadow of the pestilence's day and the arrows that fly by night, about being under the protection of God. Psalms 23. Okay, there's so many, but he couldn't even name one. This man is not a Christian, guys. Do not be fooled. And he's going to show his true colors here shortly. Now the news came out and saying that he recently is basically going to have his own social media. There it is. They can't control him anymore. He's going to be able to speak freely how he wants to. Who's going to stop him? The FCC? Right. Do you see what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying, guys. Just let it play out and see what happens. If it isn't him, what to do? But it doesn't matter because someone is coming with all the technologies in place. And this is the whole purpose. Not even about him. It's about all the technologies that are assembling to create this beast currency. But in my humble opinion, I believe it's this man. And I'm going to leave it at that. And we're going to agree to disagree. Don't mean I don't love you guys. Okay? Doesn't mean that. All it means that we agree to disagree. And we still believe in the same Christ who died and rose on the 3rd day. That's all it means. And when we are raptured, we're going to sit back and laugh about this one issue right here, how stupid we were dividing ourselves, right? That's all I'm saying. And I hope you see what I see, okay? So, once again, it's unfortunate. Last night I posted or yesterday evening, I guess, I posted a video of encouragement to everyone to say, start to prepare. Okay? And some people received it and some didn't receive it so well. And that's fine. Like I said, everybody's not going to agree with me, and I understand that. But my platform that I'm trying to use to win souls is to invite everybody in, even the sinners. That's how you win souls. You don't go to win souls from people who are already saved. Jesus didn't do that. No, he went and sat down with the money, the taxpayers, and they Pharisees. They basically did a frontal assault on him, saying, "How come he could sit down and eat with those people? How could he heal on the Sabbath?" And they didn't even realize that he was Christ. And I'm saying, don't be like a Pharisee. Start thinking a different way, because including me, I went to church for all of my life. And the entire time until I actually sat down and made it diligently. I've read scriptures here and there. The pastor tell me, go to this scripture, and then they read it for you, and then they tell you their interpretation. And it wasn't until I sat down and read the Bible from cover to cover, not once, not twice, several times. And that's how we need to become. We need to become Bereans. Anyways, so you may ask, One Stick Gospel, if what you presented to us is true, what can we do to prepare? Well, we must have spiritual preparation first and foremost. Without Yeshua's help, we are lost souls. We prepare by reading His Word daily, which is the sword of the Spirit. We don't lean on our own understanding, but we trust in the Lord God Almighty. We must prepare our families and households for what is coming our way as Christians. Many of us will be persecuted and martyred for our faith in Yeshua. However, in Revelation 2:10 it says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." That's a promise. We must put on the whole armor of God daily and crucify our flesh, because our flesh is weak, but our spirit is willing to fight. We accomplish this by practicing Ephesians chapter 6. Read it out aloud to yourself and meditate also on the book of Psalms by King David. I just call it Psalm 51, Psalms 91, Psalms 23, and there are many more. Next, we do live in an earthly vessel, meaning our bodies, and must endure to the end as per Scripture. Therefore, start putting food, water, flashlights, candles, invest in an oil lamp, buy the oil and the wicks for it, invest in a first aid kit, and a ready-to-go backpack for each family member. So when the Holy Spirit tells you to move, you move. Why? We will be the most hunted and hated people sought after on the planet. We must also walk away from technology. Come out of Babylon. Just because we live in Babylon don't mean we have to be part of Babylonian system. Okay? Go back to the old ways of the American pioneers and use the barter system among believers. Start networking among believers, true believers that are also preparing for what's coming. That way you may barter, because you're not going to be able to buy or sell eventually. And yes, it's not going to last. I know that. That's why I said do not lean on your own understanding. We're not going to be able to do this. You could have all the food in the world and be 200 meters down underground, and you still are going to have to depend on the Lord, because you're not going to survive this without Him. And that's what I'm trying to say. That's what last night's video was about preparing. Okay? With all the calamities that's going on around the world, the economic collapse and everything else, we can see it coming. Right? We know it's coming. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I would like to convey to the body of Christ. Okay? Again, I'm only a man. I'm made of flesh and blood just like you guys. And trust me, we all sin. And if it wasn't for the glory and grace of God, we wouldn't even be saved. Psalms 83, verse 2. For lo, thine enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. We're going to go to Luke 21:14. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what ye shall answer. In other words, when you're about to be persecuted in the hour of your trial, don't worry about what to say, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. Psalms 2:1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers have taken counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. And I got a question. Is that not what is happening right now? Aren't they trying to cast their cords away from us? Right? They're doing it right now. And you say, how is that? How so? Aren't they telling you can't go in restaurants without this so-called jab? Aren't they telling you can't go to the gym? Better yet, telling you can't have a job? See, if you can't have a job, you can't buy, you can't sell. And if you're a restaurant or a business who does it illegally, you're fined. So now you can't buy or sell either as a restaurant or as a business. Right? So they're casting away their cords from us right now. This is why they're calling it the pandemic of the unvaccinated. And we are being slowly isolated from the interactions with society. No jab, no job. No fine dining in restaurants, like I said, or attending gyms, sport complexes like a football game or a baseball game, etc., etc. We're being strangled slowly but surely, saints. Right? But this is what God said. He that sitteth in heaven shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure, especially when they go to start jabbing these kids. God got something for these people, man. These people are evil beyond their core. Brothers and sisters, don't worry about what is to come. Rejoice and be glad in our hour of persecution. Look up, your redemption draws nigh. Okay? Your redemption draws nigh. So, I want to thank you guys for joining me, for the guys who hung out with me, and for the guys who are going to watch, guys and gals who are going to watch this later after it's being recorded. I really appreciate it. I thank you guys for the guys who subscribed. I have many more lives to do and many more teachings, and I promise you I'll put it out like this one video got put out, so that way you guys will know ahead of time and be able to participate in the chat. I'm sorry I couldn't get into the chat like I wanted to. I'm kind of like a one-man show, so to speak, so I'm trying to make sure that the information gets out as it should and accurately. So with that being said, we're going to close out with prayer. Father, as we part ways from your presence, we ask that you guide and protect us and our families from the noisome pestilence at noonday and the arrows that fly by night. Allow us to rest in your bosom, Lord, that we may be renewed for the new day you have made for us tomorrow. We lay our burdens at your feet and walk by faith and not by sight. We trust in you and only you, Lord, to be our deliverer and shepherd. We are your sheep and enter into your gates with thanksgiving and praises. To you all honor and glory belongs. Thank you, Adonai, for your grace and mercy. Amen and amen. Guys, it's been a pleasure. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me again. Again, I want to mention that on my backup channel, the one that's called Jehu, and the other one, which is the Sackcloth and Ashes. On Sackcloth and Ashes, I intend to teach the Bible starting in Genesis and go chapter by chapter, or take 2 chapters a day, however it's going to be, and correlate with what's happening now in certain instances. And I give you an example. For instance, the Lord said, my spirit would not strive with men, and his days will be numbered 120 years. What people don't understand is, we know that 7,000 7-day week, right, that God made, and for us that's 7,000 years, and he ordained or gave man 6,000 years for man. And if you multiply 120 years times 50 cycles of Jubilee years, you come to 6,000 years, which then brings us right up to the 1,000-year millennial reign. This is how close we are. And that's what I mean. I intend to teach that over there in Sackcloth and Ashes, so you guys could see it for yourself and see how events that happened 6,000 years ago are playing out now and correlate to what's going on now. So I highly urge you guys to subscribe over there, and I intend to pick that up here shortly, God's willing and God's grace, so that way I can further teach the brothers and sisters as best they can. Okay? Again, I love you guys. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. God knows I do. I really do. Thank you so much for what you guys do. And again, I appreciate it.
Is my shepherd. He goes before me. He goes before me. Defender behind me. Defender behind me. Y'all been practicing. I won't fear. I won't fear. I'm filled with anointing. I'm filled with anointing. Thank you, Jesus. My cup's overflowing. My cup's overflowing. No weapon can harm me. No weapon can harm me. Jesus. I won't fear. I won't fear. People of God sing hallelujah. Hallelujah. I am not alone. I am not alone. Hey, He's my comfort. He's my comfort. And He always holds me close. Somebody just shout Jesus right there. He always guides me. He always guides me. Through mountains and valleys. Through mountains and valleys. His joy is refreshing. His joy is refreshing. Restores my soul. Restores my soul. Say this with confidence. Mercy and goodness. Mercy and goodness. Ooh, give me assurance. Give me assurance. Oh, that I'll see your glory. I'll see His glory. Oh, face to face, face to face. Everybody say your spirit lives within. So I will walk in your peace. I will walk in your. Say it again, your spirit lives. Now say this, my victory, my victory, my victory, my victory. Say your spirit.